Very well. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to read out the ANC statement on the outcomes of the National Working Committee that took place yesterday afternoon in order to apprise South Africans about the ongoing discussions that are taking place in the ANC ahead of the National Executive Committee meeting that is taking place tomorrow. The reason we are doing that is to ensure that there is no information vacuum, there is no disinformation, and that the ANC is allowed to speak for itself. And that is the context in which we are doing this briefing for the afternoon. I apologize for the late start. We had a power outage situation, which is not because the utility house has not paid its bills, but because of what affected the entire precinct, city power related matters. On the 2nd of June 2024, the ANC congratulated South Africans for a peaceful, free and fair elections. The people have indeed spoken, and their wishes must be respected. The ANC Secretary General, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, further outlined the ANC's approach following the results of the 2024 national and provincial elections. The results indicate that the South Africans want all parties to work together because no party received an absolute majority to form a government alone at national level in Gauteng as well as in KwaZulu-Natal. The ANC has taken the position that we must all act in the interest of our country and the people in our country, and work to build national consensus on the form of government that is best suited to move South Africa forward at this moment in our history. The ANC is keen and determined to engage all parties in this respect. The broadest range of sectors of our population behind the urgent need to move our country out of the current potential electoral stalemate. The ANC is driven by the imperative to maintain national unity, stability, and to put in place a government that will move with speed to tackle all the pressing and stubborn socio-economic challenges our nation faces. We believe that despite any differences we may have, working together as South Africans, we can seize this moment to usher our country into a new era of hope. Informed by these imperatives, the ANC has started engagements with political parties in the country. We have been meeting with all parties that are keen to contribute ideas on how we can collectively move our country forward to form a government that ensures national unity and stability, and a country that continues the transformation of South Africa and safeguards our constitutional democracy. The National Working Committee met on the 4th of June 2024, yesterday, 2 days after the announcements of the results by the Independent Electoral Committee, to receive a report from national officials on meetings held thus far with various political parties. These include meetings with delegations from the Inkatha Freedom Party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the Democratic Alliance, the NFP, and the PA, the Patriotic. The ANC has also had engagements with its alliance partners, the South African Communist Party, the Congress of South African Trade Unions, and South African National Civics Organization as part of the consultation process. And these are our alliance partners with whom the journey has been very long. The national officials reported to the National Working Committee that the ANC has repeatedly reached out to the MK party for an engagement meeting with no positive response. Our door remains open as we continue to reach out to every party that is keen to contribute positively to moving our country forward. So our story is a story of speaking to everyone in the interest of consensus, in the interest of a national dialogue in our country. The ANC and NWC discussed the three options as set out by the Secretary General on the 2nd of June 2024, where we did address members of the media. And these have been further elaborated in the NWC, including the inherent risks of each option. The National Working Committee held a robust and constructive discussion on the perspective and report from national officials. The discussions enriched the ANC perspective and further probed the implications of each option for South Africa and the ANC's historic mission to build a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa for all. Based on the consensus reached, the National Working Committee will take its detailed perspectives on forming the government in South Africa to the National Executive Committee, which is scheduled to take place tomorrow. On the matter of the appointment of premiers in various provinces, the ANC, in line with the electoral rules on Monday, the 3rd of June 2024, which is just a day after the announcement of results, did convene of its provincial executive committees to nominate candidates for premiers in the provinces where the ANC has gained a majority or is likely to lead a coalition government. The extended PECs that included representatives from its alliance partners were overseen by presiding officers from the ANC Electoral Committee that is led by Comrade Halima Motlanthe. Each PC was required to nominate 3 premier candidates, of which 2 candidates are women. All candidates will be interviewed in the coming days by ANC national officials. The final ANC premiers and premier candidates will be unveiled early next week. Provincial legislatures are due to sit on the 17th and the 18th of June to elect the presiding officers in the name of the Speaker of the Legislature, the Deputy Speaker of the Legislature, and the Premier of that particular province. The ANC welcomes a robust debate in society amongst its members on the way forward following the outcomes of the 2024 general election. We have noted documents purporting to be official documents of the ANC being distributed on digital platforms. We once again reiterate that any official communication by the ANC will be published on our official communication platforms on all persons that are engaged in some form of misinformation or disinformation to desist from doing so, from wherever they come. The current situation has created some uncertainties and risks, but also opportunities to move the country forward, more determined to tackle problems its single face, more determined to unite and face the future together as South Africans. The ANC is committed to ensure that we unite the people of South Africa to move our country forward and form a government that reflects the message from the electorate, which is the message that says we must all work together. Many other democracies who face similar challenges of forming government often take months of uncertainty to reach a conclusion. The ANC remains committed to ensure that we build a national consensus to avoid any uncertainty that can lead to instability. And we aim to do that with as much expedition as possible. The National Executive Committee of the ANC will come with a clear determination of the way forward, because the National Executive Committee is the final arbiter on this particular matter internally within the African National Congress. The ANC will further engage the Alliance, civil society, and all South Africans on our view about the immediate steps as well as the future. We will make further announcements about the NEC meeting and opportunities for the media to engage in due course by way of others. As we end, we continue. Let us do more together. I end the ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, and I'm happy to take questions.
Hi. Hello, Rachel Savage from The Guardian. Will the NWC be recommending one particular way forward, so one set of coalition negotiations with one constellation of parties or partners, a single party, or will multiple options be going to the ANC, and can you set out what these options are?
Thank you very much. Shall we proceed to, I am trying to look for any other hand. I always start on my left, as is custom.
Hi, I'm Nellie Payton from Reuters. You said that the results indicate that South Africans want all parties to work together. Does that mean that the ANC would be trying to work with as many parties as possible?
Christian Duplessis from NWC. My question is, you said that there were three options that was discussed. What is these three options? And then on the second issue, Minister Zikotwa was arrested and appeared in court today. Will the ANC's set-aside room now be implemented? And what is the ANC's comment on this matter? Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Baki from Agence France Presse. You mentioned that there's been meeting with the
Sorry, you could just reiterate where you.
Dr. Baki from Agence France Presse, AFP. The IFP, the EFF, the DA, the NFP, and the DA. Have any of these parties expressed willingness to join a government of national union?
All right, thank you very much. If I may, I can take the fourth. Question over there.
Mine is to add to the question about this one. What is that going to do? What is his appearing in court? What might be under this environment? And also, the conundrum that you're facing with the structures and your veterans is they are speaking about the concerns of partnering.
Yes, ABC.
We've seen veterans commenting around their concerns with partnering with the DA and they're citing the path that the DA has. Does the ANC have a plan to deal with that? Did you want to discuss in the NWC? Thank you.
May I just start with the last question from News 24? The ANC has got an internal democracy process. Anyone that speaks outside of that internal democratic process, knows that they ought to be engaging with both leaders and members of the ANC. Even at this moment in history, we are not going to shake away from that responsibility to hold the line, because, and I may just indicate that the National Working Committee meeting was very cohesive, robust, engaging, and we urge anyone who has views to engage both the National Executive Committee and the National Working Committee. I will not be commenting on individual comments by those that are associated with the African National Congress. But that is the perspective, and that is the culture in the African National Congress. We don't go off script and outside of the line of the ANC. And so we urge people to do so, even as there is a lot of anxiety from our members about the various permutations that are involved in establishing what type of a coalition setup we are going to consider, where we need to set up coalitions. And remember, we don't have to set up coalitions everywhere. We have achieved outright majority in a number of provinces, but where we need to do so, including nationally, that is what we are doing. Siamtanda, I hope that responds to your question. The question about whether the EFF and the Patriotic Alliance would be willing to form part of the government of national unity. It is our understanding that the fact that those parties have reached out and we have also reached out to them is indicative of the willingness to talk about building national unity in South Africa. And you can't build national unity at this point in time because the ANC has not secured an outright majority. Even when the ANC secured an outright majority in the past, we have always invited various parties into government. That includes Patricia De Leo. I can count others, quite a number of those. In Parliament, we had Khuleko Hlelo as the chairperson of the Public Accounts Standing Committee. So this is not new to the ANC, but the people of South Africa are asking for us to work closer together in the interest of fostering unity. On the matter of Zinzi Bodwa, all I can say is that we've noted that the step aside policy of the ANC will kick in, or shall I say the constitution of the ANC will kick in, because we respect the rule of law, and I suppose there's really no question about that. And then, the thing about whether as many parties as possible and all of that, I think the most important thing is to ensure that when the options that have been set up, such as a government of national unity, such as minority explored by the National Executive Committee tomorrow, that the best option will be looked at. At this point in time, the conversation is looking at the government of national unity, because this is what the people of South Africa have said to us, that put together a multi-party arrangement that works for the benefit of South Africa. As to which parties will finally form part of that is a function of ongoing negotiations. I hope I have covered that aspect. I can indicate that the ANC has reached out to everyone, literally everyone, and is continuing to reach out to everyone in a very short space of time, because as we say in our statement, we don't want to have an information vacuum. in a situation where, as we've seen it elsewhere in other democracies, where you have a very long way to go, there's certainty about how government is being constituted in circumstances such as the ones that are having. So you can applaud us for, at least you can applaud us for the fact that we've immediately initiated conversations with not just like-minded parties. At this point, we're not dealing with that notion, we're engaging everyone. Of course, we're engaging everyone on the basis of our values and our principles and our policies. And when the National Executive Committee meets tomorrow, it will consider all of those fundamentals that we need to take into account in deciding on who forms part of that government of national unity. I'm not in a position to speculate what the final outcome or final decision of the National Executive Committee is going to be. I'm happy to take any further questions. Sandy, welcome here. That's not Sunday World.
Good afternoon. My name is Bulukumlo from ANC. I just want to understand whether during the negotiations with all those parties that were spoken to, you had disagreements that you felt were deal breakers. And also whether, as you say, you said you reached out to MK Party specifically to reach out. I'm just thinking here, if you went through perhaps the officials, did you try to go through Mr. Jacob Zuma, who is the party president, who also happened to be a member of your party, the ANC? Just saying, if you really were serious to hear from them, did you consider that? And perhaps lastly, these negotiations, are they, because you have lost KZN and Gauteng, as you negotiate, are you considering options of, say, at the national level, you will go with Party A and you consider going with Party B at the provincial level?
Some can answer from the CPC. First question to a spokesperson of the ANC is, what is the base? What is the basis of briefing the media today when the decisions you take, you don't take decisions in the NWC, you rather make recommendations that can be rectified by the ANC? What is the basis of coming with recommendations that have not yet been endorsed by the highest making decision body or decision structure conferences? Then secondly, where is the Secretary General of the ANC? Isn't he the one who should be briefing on these particular pertinent issues with regards to the trajectory of the country, noting that he is effectively the CEO of the governing party? And then on the issues of negotiations, what were some of the conditions placed before you by the parties, the EFF, the PA, the TA, the NFP, and the IFP? Then lastly, on KwaZulu-Natal, is there already a compact deal that has been sealed between all of the opposition parties in that province, the ANC, the DA, the EFF, and also the IFP, which will place Mr. Tamindu as the premier of that particular province, with the ANC taking two NECs and a speaker position within that province of KwaZulu-Natal? And lastly, is Jacob Zuma taking that?
I missed the last question. Is Mr. Jacob Zuma?
If Mr. Jacob Zuma politically, the officials on the radio that he has said, if the ANC, his host of the MK party, who wants the president of the country still on course going to yesterday. Thank you.
May I tackle these questions before? I want to start off with, where is the SG? Should he not have been doing the briefing? It is standard. You're going to get accustomed to it, Sankelo. The spokesperson of the ANC does the briefings that are supposed to be done by the spokesperson of the ANC in accordance with the internal communications protocol. So I invite you to familiarize yourself with that. The SG is overseeing negotiations that are taking place. But even if it was not, it is the responsibility of the national spokesperson to communicate decisions of constitutional structures, such as the National Working Committee. And while briefing the media from the NWC, I did explain this, I was reading out the statement, that we want to take our members along on this journey so that there is no vacuum in terms of communication. Compact deal in KZN, I wouldn't be that familiar with that compact deal. We did have the participation of the KZN leadership at the National Working Committee meeting. They have guidance from the national office, national officials from the National Working Committee. They have also taken us into confidence about some of the initial conversations that are taking place in KwaZulu-Natal, which demonstrate between the national thinking as well as the governments. They have been given a further mandate to proceed with the negotiations that are taking place. I wouldn't be able to expand beyond that, but that is the mandate, together with the delegation of provincial office bearers in Gauteng. The same thing happened. They were part of the National Working Committee, so you could say it was an extended National Working Committee. Is Zuma blue ticking the ANC? I'm not able to put myself in the head of Mr. Zuma, but we can indicate that we have made approaches to the MK party for the record, for colleagues in the media to note that when we do get responded to, or if we do get responded to, we would then do exactly as we've done with other parties. I am not aware of conditions that have been put before the ANC. The talks that we've been having have been exploratory, number one. Secondly, there hasn't been a sense of arrogance from the parties that we met, in the same way that the ANC has been humble enough. If you went through the statement that we issued 2 days or 3 days ago, that's the spirit that generally is pervasive. And if there are particular conditions that align with the values and the principles of the African National Congress, we would deal with those as they come. And I'm sure the NEC will be looking very closely with a hawk's eye on those. I want to proceed to the Sunday work.
Thank you, Professor. Something wonderful to you and the colleagues. In mind, first of all, surely the NEC should take a stock as an organization to leave what other people are doing. And the conversation is about how the funds they were going to the 2019 elections at percent of the support, and 2 elections later it has tanked by more than 20 percentage points to 40% this time. Therefore, I want to ask you if the NEC will it be pinning its tank of 20 percentage points on who was during the parent election, or will the ANC this time around once again trigger a collective responsibility plan which would require the organization of either NGC or a conference with the ANC forms by this one? That's number one. Number two, as it relates to President Zuma, the LK party was as well, at least according to the disciplined member, there is a way does the ANC not just command its disciplined member in the whole process, but to bring the numbers and then the ANC have it. And then number last, no, actually, you know, thank you.
Hi, John McGraw with the New York Times. I have 2 questions. One on the timeline. Does the ANC have a timeline for when you all would both like to make a decision on what you all would want to do? And also a timeline for when you all would like to actually come to an agreement with what the appointments are? And then the second, just on the government of national unity, by definition, as the ANC sees it, does that have to include all parties in parliament, or do you all see it as something only the parties who wish to be involved?
I'm happy to end the briefing with responses. So I would suggest that we take all hands. Yes, please go ahead.
Salam from Salam Media. Just on verification, I got answers to okay with a not completely or responded with no interest.
Just a follow-up, the option of being in opposition, is that out of the question for the ANC, or will the ANC also discuss the issue of what that will be? Thank you.
Considering the fact that we have already had some of the leaders of the ANC, those the NWC, those who are veterans expressing their preferences, would you concede that perhaps this particular juncture we find ourselves in as the country, you particularly as a party, perhaps is an test for your renewal project, when some, including your alliance partners, are also expressing despite the possibility of you going into a coalition with the TA. But let's go to provinces. In Bumalanga, my understanding is that 4 names, that's actually correct. 4 names instead of 3 as per the guidelines, 4 Kenyan candidates were nominated, and that is because the name of the incumbent Premier had to be included all because she is the incumbent. But by the look of things, the numbers did not go in her favor. How are you going to deal with that? Lastly, there's one of your MPs, Mr. Bueno Mabulo, who has written a letter of demand to the ANC demanding that he be reinstated, go to the National Assembly or the NWC. Failure to do so by the end of today, he threatens to interdict the swearing in of the ANC members of parliament who will be representing the
A follow-up question, if I may. So this government of national unity, does the ANC envisage ministries being divvied up on proportional lines as per the vote of parties in government and national unity? And does it also envisage all parties in parliament, those above a certain threshold, taking part in this government of national unity if they want to, and if the ANC agrees? And finally, the DA, has been very vocal about the EFF and the NK, and the EFF, and NK, also been vocal about the DA. Have the DA and the EFF expressed willingness to work in a government of national unity together?
And those will be the last ones.
Also, just a follow-up question. Can you elaborate on the possible coalition permutations that has been discussed? And just secondly, there has been talks on social media about the markets and whether the markets should be taken into account with coalitions. Is that a factor that will be taken into account? Thank you.
Whether markets have to be taken into account.
Yes, it's not again, it's fine, it's fine. An important question that I wanted to ask is the ANC in this particular process by the National Democratic Commission, an NDR thereof, which has a national commission which says the motive forces of the National Democratic Movement, and then it seeks to liberate people first and Africans particularly. Is the ANC in this process still guided by those principles, and particularly the National Commission that they just decided, or is it now guided by an interest to just remain in power, even if it compromises the principles of the National Democratic Commission? Thank you very much.
I'm Bella Mtita from Dayton. Minister Zizigwada has resigned. Could you just also add a comment on that?
Okay, thank you very much. Of these several questions, let me deal with the one about whether the ANC is still guided by the principles of wanting to achieve a national democratic society through the theory of national democratic revolution. Absolutely. Which ties up with the question by News 24 around whether we would consider an option of being in the opposition benches. I can't speculate on all of those things, but I can tell you that the ANC would go as far as that in order to safeguard its historical mission, its values, and its principles. So those are some of the options that are on the table. I know some of you colleagues are expecting us to give you finality, and questions to my left were really speaking around some kind of definitiveness. We're not going to be able to do that until we go to the National Executive Committee. We're calling this briefing in order to update you and, more importantly, to convey the message to the people of South Africa, to our members and supporters, utilizing the instrument of the fourth estate. But indeed, our commitment to a national democratic society cannot be changed on the basis of the fact that we have not achieved an outright majority. In the conversations about who we're going to finally go into a coalition with, those will be the key principles that consider the kind of policies and a set of policies that those that are going into a government of national unity with will be considered. So I wanted to just say that to respond to the two questions similarly. Then the question from Sunday World. Markets being taken into account in making the decisions that we have to make. Markets as well as, more importantly, the people of South Africa. What their expectations are, what they are deserving of, not as passive participants, but as active participants, because they've shown us, they've shown everyone that democracy is well and alive in this country. The electorate. So it cannot be that our responses are on the basis of what the markets are likely to say. Surely we have got to consider a number of interest groups, and we've got to consider the state of our economy, but more importantly, what comes first are the expectations of the people of South Africa. Or whether there is a willingness to discuss ministers, the constitution of the cabinet, if I may paraphrase the question. I'm certain that at the right time that will be considered, because if you are building a government of national unity, remember we're not new to constituting a government of national unity as the ANC. We did that in 1994. So we do have the benefit of experience more than anybody else. And I'm sure that that is those will be one of the considerations. Mologo, ENCA, the renewal project. One of the real tests of the ANC having the decline that we experienced in the election has been the fact that the renewal project is at work. You may not see it that way. We've lost some members. We've expelled some. We've suspended some, precisely because the renewal project is not spin. It's hard at work. And we're likely to accelerate even more, because we're rather fewer than having people that may blemish the integrity of the African National Congress. So I would say to you that the renewal project is steaming ahead. Many lessons are there, and we need to continue with the work of renewing and cleansing
the African National Congress in order to contribute to the renewal of society. It's not a matter of renewing the ANC for its sake, but it's a matter of renewing the ANC in order to contribute to the renewal of society. We're absolutely convicted about that. We're absolutely convicted about that. If you look at the past recent history, the past 12 months or thereabout, we expelled a former Secretary General. We suspended a former president. If that's not renewal, I don't know what renewal is. That forms part of that. When somebody has been convicted in a court of law, we have asked for them to step aside. Others have stepped aside voluntarily. That's part of the renewal project. It's not only just that. A lot of work. If you look at the work we're doing to revive intellectual development in the ANC through the Tamil School of Leadership, you can see that that is renewal. So there are quite a lot of things that contribute to discourse on the renewal of the African National Congress. I've responded to your question, Santana, about the option of being in the position. There was a question from also about oil Malamulo. Well, I suppose citizens and members of the ANC have got an option to exercise their rights in law for as long as it is done within the ambit of the rule of law in our country. And one of those things that we posit as key conditions for whoever we're going to collaborate with in the government of national unity is the respect for the rule of law. It's one of the non-negotiables, the respect for our constitutional democracy, because we know how difficult it was to get to a point where we have a country that is working, that has got a strong constitution, where constitutional democracy is hard at work. Part of the reflection of the effectiveness of our constitutional architecture. Alliance partners are key to the ANC. The journey that we've traveled with alliance partners comes a long way. Part of the consultations that are currently taking place, and they have been consulted. And so we're comfortable that even where COSATU or the Communist Party or SALCO is quoted outside, we're comfortable about the internal process of consultation that is currently underway. That's all I'm willing to say on this matter. On the matter of Mpumalanga province, this is again still up in the air, given the fact that all of the candidates is contained in our constitution at all times. But collective responsibility doesn't mean we don't isolate areas for improvement or isolate areas of weakness. So you always have to balance that with the way the ANC conducts its own conversations. There will be a National Executive Committee, not tomorrow's, because of time constraints, that will do a thorough assessment of the elections, of performance, and everything related to that. That is a decision. It has to happen anyway. JZ being a disciplined member and whether he can bring in numbers.
should be asked to bring in numbers. Jacob Zuma is currently suspended. And we are now in the National Disciplinary Committee, and I know the anxiety from members of the media about why is it taking so long. Urge you to allow for a process of conclusion of that. He is a suspended member. So we're looking for numbers for somebody that is suspended, currently suspended. Unless things turn out different. But as I said, we had approached the NK party and are awaiting the response. We had to do it as a matter of principle so that no one is excluded, no one is left behind, being the mantra of the ANC. Campaign slogan says, let's do more together. And we've been magnanimous enough to be able to do something of that nature. Are all political parties going to be, I think that was a question, my sister, considered in the government of national unity? I'm not certain. I mean, we have so many political parties in South Africa. That would be a function of negotiation and also the various contributions and the skill sets that people ought to bring to government to ensure we constitute an executive and the legislative arm that is made up of competent individuals, that is made up of experienced individuals, that more importantly represent the demographics of our beloved country, South Africa. So those are the big principles that I can refer to. And it's not a matter of, it will just be a government of national unity constituted by an army of different parties. It also depends, of course, on the negotiations that are currently underway. I do trust from Salam Media. Did I respond to your question?
Were you ignored or they responded?
I'm asking if I responded to your question.
Not quite clearly.
Please reiterate.
Were you completely ignored by the MK or you responded?
Oh, okay. I don't think that it's a case of either or. Because when you approach people, they need to consult, they need to come back to you. I can't come to a conclusion that we've been ignored. It will be unfair to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.
Recognition. As minister.
She answered.
What about it? Isn't it only correct?
How is recognition?
Yeah, just to reiterate your question, Amanda.
We actually want
We have responded to that question by saying that the rule of law is foremost in our country. Even in all these negotiations that we're going to be having with different parties, the rule of law comes first, is second. Even in the case of Zizi Kodo, the rule of law must be protection. And the step aside police of the ANC is going to be kicking in immediately.
Does the remain of the district parliament is open speech?
The electoral committee, headed by Halima Mutlante, Comrade Halima Mutlante, will obviously look at these developments and come to a particular conclusion. It is not going to be, it's an untenable situation in any case that you can remain on the list. Given the step aside policy, it's as simple as that.
Can I explain a specific date for the declaration of the new government?
I'm sure that can be provided to you, but I'd like to adjourn the press briefing. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that's
the way that you all?
Well, I mean, we're working with a timeline of about less than a week. As I said, we are not going to be having a situation where there's uncertainty in our country or people deserve finality as soon as possible. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.